Orb presents Eeney, Meeney, Miney, Magic.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Cole Ross.
And this is Gwen Static.
Yeah, and our first guest for Orb. Listeners know Gwen as the composer of our theme song.
Mm-hmm. Or on the Slack. I've been there for, 5 years now, guys.
Something like that, yeah. That Slack is it's been around for a minute.
A half decade of frippery. Of just a consistent time sink. We're really happy to have you. We're friends with Gwen. When we used to be able to do conventions in real life, we would hang out with Gwen a couple times a year. And really happy to have you.
Yeah. Oh, man. That 1 year, 2016, where I was able to catch both shows, that was a pretty good year until it all, the other part of it.
Yeah.
Until it was not. Before we get into talking about this episode, which is a good one that you specifically requested, can you, I should have warned you about this. Would you talk just a little bit about what approach you took to the theme song?
Oh, absolutely. I was mainly thinking of two specific J.G. Thirlwell tracks. I don't think I ever knew how to pronounce his name until I heard you guys say it out loud.
I suddenly got very self-conscious that we were saying it poorly.
I feel like I had a different instinct when I read it. Anyway, I've never really listened to a whole ton of his music just outside of the context of the show, but I spun the OST album while I was kind of synthesizing the feel of it all. And two main tracks really stood out. And I had to look at the theme song of the Venture Brothers because that's just such a tone setting piece of music. It's bombastic and industrial in all the ways that the show kind of needs you to know what it is before you even get on board. And then, of course, the other track, you even called out the specific track I was thinking of in the Careers in Science episode. I don't know what it's called, but it's the zoom, 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 zoom.
Yeah.
And the drums are very specifically recalling that song.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I walk around the house humming the bass line from the from the theme song to this, which I can do without feeling like an asshole because I didn't write it. it was somebody else.
I walk around Cole's house humming the guitar line, and together we're the worst a cappella group.
If we are ever able to do a high definition remaster of that theme song, I would love to get that bass line played on an actual upright bass. Oh yeah, because I think that's where it would really pop like that.
Yeah. Get it real jazzy and boomy.
So we're only doing a few guests per season, and we reached out to the guests to see what episodes they wanted to do, and you chose this one. What is tell us about that?
Season 1 had a few really good options. I didn't want to be the jerk who took Tag Sailor It, because I think that's kind of universally agreed. Yeah.
who grabbed that one?
Well, I wanted someone else to have the opportunity, because I feel like that's canonically the best episode of season 1. It's a really good episode. It has every right for that title. But when I was looking at the episodes, there's a few reasons. A big one is Triana, not the best character, still a character I really like. And of course, Dr. Orpheus, his whole thing, I thought just unlocked so many layers of the show's universe in a way that was so additive to just the overall presentation. I feel like once Orpheus is in, you firmly know that, okay, this is basically Marvel Comics.
Yeah, moving into more Marvel stuff has always made me really happy with the show, just because that's my flavor of dorkery. And having the Doctor Strange XP was huge into just signaling to me that this was made for me.
Yeah.
And this episode, recording another one in this session, were just really big. Like, hey, this is for you, Gary. Like, buddy, we got you covered.
The fact that when they decided to take it in a bit of a Marvel direction, the first kind of overt reference they put in was Doctor Strange also speaks to kind of an aesthetic, and maybe a particular obsession with weird media that I vibe with more. Like if they started with the Brown Widow, or if they started with basically the Avengers, like they eventually got to in season 7, that would have been, I think, a worse choice. Actually, it also helps that Dr. Orpheus himself not only has an amazing performance, but it like is one of the more relatable characters in this whole cartoon to me.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Relatable, and like stands as a pretty good foil to Dr. Venture in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Explicitly, and this episode gets that right out the gate, which I really love. Like later they'll do an episode that is about the science versus magic, but this is the good, absolute monster versus somebody who is traditionally seen as a monster, who doesn't have this prestige as a necromancer, who is actually like a really, there's something about TV shows about mostly bad people, where the decent ones just stand out. I think about that a lot with Deadwood.
No.
Like you're watching Deadwood and you're just like, man, the name is escaping right now. The minor guy who marries the banker, like what a good guy. He's just like a good person in this show. Yeah. And that's how I think about Dr. O. Like he's flawed, but is just like morally good. A decent person.
Yeah.
Full of monsters, like absolute monsters. And they have Dr. Venture do one of the more monstrous things. And this, we cut back to, Brock's kind of the origins of his disregard for human life. In the self-justification that he gives himself through his pineal gland, like all of that stuff. And then we just have this one character who is just really trying. And I really love it.
Yeah, just the fact that like, okay, we have a scientist, whatever, completely inhuman. We have somebody who literally spends a lot of time in the other world and like has really grounded concerns and cares. I like enough can't be said about the way that he's written too. Like the fact that he is an outlet for this flowery, almost like 18th and 19th century poetry. And just the antiquated way that he decides to address people. There are a couple of lines that I highlighted in this, but like there are 4 portions of pudding in the in the fridge. You may avail yourself to the contents of one.
Oh, it's all Orpheus is just so good. I wonder whose voice that, like, is it Hammer or Jackson where that voice lives? Because that voice is just so crystal clear from the get-go.
Yeah, so and the art book makes it sound like so the idea for the Doctor Strange character came from Public, whereas Hammer was the one who kind of was more in love with the antiquated language, right?
Yeah, the visual design came from Public and kind of the impetus, but they talked about hanging around the Astrobase and just kind of impersonating Marvel characters.
Yes,
and this is Doctor Strange is easy and fun to impersonate. Like that whole by the eye of Agamotto stuff is, I imagine, if you're these two goofballs living this dream life in this art studio, like that would be real easy to slip into.
And also, I mean, I want to talk about the name for just a second. So naming him Byron, like Lord Byron, who wrote all this overwrought romantic poetry, but specifically Orpheus, not just because of like Orphic magic, but like when, his backstory, he comes in as this divorced dad who is obsessed with his wife still. Like he still believes that he can get back together with her. Orpheus in mythology being the person who literally went to hell and rescued a person he loved, but then screwed everything up by looking back. Orpheus being like fixated on the past as like this fatal flaw is incredibly chef's kiss, really good.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So obviously, this episode originally aired September 4th, 2004. That's not the obvious part. The obvious part is that, just in case you couldn't tell from the tone of my voice, but the episode, introduces Dr. Orpheus, and Dr. Strange is obviously an influence. The other big influence is a character named Dim Twilight, who showed up in the last season of The Tick.
It didn't show up. That was not produced. Like it was
written for the last season.
Written for it, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, so that was the idea. That's something that Jackson Public brought over from the Tick. And this episode has some firsts in it, other than just Dr. Orpheus and Triana, obviously. This is also the most origin we get for Brock. In the art book, there's some stories about, you know, things that they were going to bring up.
Yeah.
And in the commentary, the other thing being the learning bed. Kind of thing, which is played for more trauma here than it is later.
Yeah.
Like later, it's a more profound trauma. Here, it sounds more like straight up abuse.
Yeah.
You know,
That Dean line is one of my favorites in the first season, though. It gets hot in there. Yeah, my pot made.
But I just love these things because like this is the episode that like hammers home, you know, you've got these kids who we've only ever seen on adventures, like, oh, they would be just, you know, no offense to people who are homeschooled, they would be several orders of magnitude beyond that. They have never interacted with another kid.
yeah, and that stuff is highly relatable.
Yeah.
Like the scenes where Dean is trying to talk to Triana were incredibly relatable awkwardness. This is probably the best episode so far.
Think so.
For me that we've covered. Like this is going to unseat Dia de los Dangerous for me. You know, it's the best one we've done so far. This is like so quotable.
Yeah.
This was the episode I showed my then girlfriend, eventual ex-wife, to try to get her to watch the show with me. Because I was just like, you know, this is just like, listen to Dean say, "I dare you to make less sense." Like, isn't that funny? Like, isn't that a good delivery? You know, and got her to watch it with me, even though she never quite went as deep as I did. And I divorced her because that's, you know,
That's how it goes.
that's what you do.
That's what happens.
Irreconcilable differences. Yeah. We never consummated, so an annulment was in order. But it's totally normal.
Oh, geez. Do we want to get into it?
Yeah, I think so. I have a bunch of little trivia bits and stuff that will come up as we get through.
Yeah.
I want to land on Triana when we get there, but we can get there first.
Yeah.
So we get our cold open. Rusty is dreaming of being strangled in the womb by another fetus. This is the first real like time they land on that beat again after the pilot and the first couple of episodes. They didn't know what they were doing with this in the pilot, but here they knew that the other fetus was going to be his brother.
Yeah, Jonas Jr.
What I think is interesting about the fetus segments in the first season, I don't know. I can't see it with fresh eyes anymore. But when I was first watching it back in the season 1, like 2004 contemporary days, I always I liked that it was ambiguous when you saw the dreams that you didn't know which fetus was which. So it's very reasonable to interpret that he's the one getting his head chewed on and having that stress dream.
Yeah, but it's we don't know. It's like Bart with the twin or Xavier's twin.
The scars on the wrong side.
Yeah, scars on your Cassandra Nova. You know, you kind of going through this nightmare house. I love that they seeded that so early. Brock is also having a rough dream, thinking about the time he accidentally killed somebody in college. I love Brock's mustache. Like, old Brock is great.
Yep. Oh God, Brock in the 70s, where he kind of like got stuck, right? Like this is absolutely. You know, they make a joke of that later. It's kind of a joke now that he is, you know, the 70s holdover. But yeah, you can totally see, this is a trauma that he has here.
Yeah. Yep. The boys are playing with a Ouija board. And Dean asks if he'll find true love, and the presence of magic causes the Ouija board to work as Dr. Orpheus emerges from a pod in the lab.
Yeah.
Here is our introduction to the visual design of Dr. Orpheus, which is more serious than like most of the designs in the show.
Yeah.
Like this just looks like an alternate costume in like Ultimate Alliance for Doctor Strange. This is legit cool.
Yeah. It's very ornate. I love his medallion. A thing that I love about his the Dracula trophy. But another thing I really enjoy when he takes his cloak off, it's just like a smoking jacket. Like he becomes like casual dad when that cloak is not on.
Orpheus, like in general, like his entire aesthetic is seriousness. Like he takes his job more seriously than almost anyone you've met in the show so far. And everywhere he walks, he's accompanied by this super serious and intense trumpet line.
Yeah, just incredible piece of music. And then they end up playing this for comedy a lot. One of the things that happens in the next episode we're talking about is they talk about how hard it is to express how something will be funny on the page that will end up funny on the screen. And I think this is one of those things where like, hey, we're going to seed this dramatic music with everything he says. And then when eventually he just starts saying normal things and we use that music, like promise, trust us, it will be funny.
Yeah. Like the joke is this guy never goes below an 8. On the intensity level, and that is fun. Yeah.
They talk about on the commentary, they talk about the medal there, that being born of an inside joke, where they talked, all the Draculas have this little award, and they're talking about getting it for Dracula in high school, like the Dracula event. And that's why all the Draculas have a Dracula trophy.
Yeah, just because Doc Hammer misspoke. Instead of saying medallion, like Dracula medallion is a Dracula trophy.
Very good. The commentary for this episode is extremely bro-y.
Yeah. No.
It includes which character and doctor on the Venture Brothers would you want to have sex with?
Right.
Stuff. You know, it's a pretty bro-y commentary.
Yeah, and it comes down to like, oh God, they say like, oh, Molotov, but she's dangerous. Triana, I guess. Well, she's 17. It's like a Paris thing.
It's like, it's a little bit queasy.
Yeah.
Not great. And nobody, it takes a long time for people to land on the correct doctor girlfriend.
Correct.
Things, so eventually they get to the ultimate thirst trap in the show. And then they, so.
I like that they introduced Dr. Orpheus as a threat. Like this cold open has him be like this interloper who's going to come in and, he kills Helper and he puts the boys to sleep, but then he's immediately a nice guy. He's just the tenant.
Wake up, next morning, Dean is waking up his dad to tell him they got hypnotized by a man with a Dracula trophy. We get some bad dadding. Rusty is super upset that he had woken him up. And he eventually says, reveals like, no, this is a guy who's renting space on the compound. He says, no more Night Stalker reruns for you, mister, which is a reference to Kolchak, the Night Stalker, which was a 70s TV show about a supernatural detective that was a big influence on the X-Files.
Fucking love it. I love that, just the casual Night Stalker drop.
Is this something that you guys... Did you guys actually watch this? This is my only exposure to this piece of media.
Yeah, I've seen episodes of it. Like just it ran like Late Night USA or something like that.
I had never heard of it. So
there's only like 20 episodes of it. So I thought it was like, yeah, okay. But you've seen it on USA. Great.
Something like that. Like I was real young. I don't know. Maybe it was TBS or TNT. One of those.
Turner Classic.
Turner Classics. Night Stalkers.
There's also a movie, and then at one point, it converts into a show called The Night Strangler, which I don't know if that's just a glow up for the Night Stalker.
I thought this guy solved mysteries. Is it like Night Stalker does not sound like he's the person who solves the crime?
Right.
He's the mystery of the unchoked neck.
When the Night Stalker gets fed up, he turns to the Strangler.
Gotta get to the bottom of his trachea.
Grab the handle, push the button.
Exactly.
Oh my God. But this is where we get the first Dr. Orpheus behold performance and the sting. Like the voice actor for this, Stephen Retazzo, he's just like an off-Broadway guy. Kind of like comes from the same crop that they pulled Molotov's voice actress from.
Mia Baron. Yeah, I've had that theory for a while that I think a lot of the less recognizable voice actors are literally just whoever they can get in New York at the time.
Yeah. And it works out for the better.
So Orpheus says, he killed the robot to protect him because he would have witnessed the impossible. None of that really adds up to very much. Later Orpheus acts like he doesn't know what's going on with the machine, but it's all fine.
Yeah.
And I love this arc, knowing what comes later in the show, of Rusty putting on this polite front because he needs the money only as long as he has to. But then as soon as, like, again, with the Brisby episode, as soon as Rusty is disrespected, which will happen in the magic versus science episode, then it's done. And then at that point, Dr. Orpheus is a nuisance.
Yes.
To him, like he's really sucking up to him at this point, like trying to present as a professional, but that tank only has so much gas for Rusty.
Because one of Rusty's defining traits is he has no patience whatsoever.
Yeah, and he's extremely proud of not a whole lot, which makes sense, having the childhood that he had and being on lunchboxes and shit.
Yeah, they never really play. I think they underplay the fact that he is also basically a child star. Like, that is one of a host of traumas, and it is nowhere near as traumatic as, say, like the Action Man waking you up by dry firing a gun next to you and saying "not today."
Yeah.
No, it's just an additional humiliation that all of his traumas became beloved entertainment for millions.
Yeah, it's like boy fights or bum fights or whatever.
Baby Buster.
Yeah, Baby Buster's boy fights. Busty Venture. So he's just chatting with Orpheus. He's converted the library into a dream home. This episode is great for me fantasizing about living in the Venture compound, because I love Dr. Venture's bedroom, and then I also love Dr. Orpheus's library.
Yeah.
Like, that is how I have tried to model my office right now. I have big tapestries of bookshelves up on the wall to try to get Dr. Orpheus energy.
Nice.
And it feels good. There's a warm light in here.
I sure got the impression that Dr. Orpheus doesn't need to decorate when he gets to a new place. He can just magic it there.
Yeah, he doesn't have to buy tapestries from Amazon.
No. I just pictured him building all of those nice built-in bookshelves and stuff, and I don't know. I've reached the point in my life as an old man where I look at that and think that'd be nice, but that'd be really expensive.
It's only money, man.
It's only money.
Spend all your time there.
That's true.
So Orpheus and Dr. Venture are having a little doctor off. Dr. Venture is revealed last episode, not really a doctor. Orpheus says that, his title was bestowed by a higher power. But he went to an upstate community college where he majored in communications and minored in women's studies. Which is great. And he's basically calling out Rusty because he uses his lab to create abominations.
Right.
Something has happened with his latest invention, kind of leading us to our A plot in this episode.
While this is happening, they're doing like cutaways because Dean has gone to his dad. Brock has gone to wake up Brock. Hank has gone to wake up Brock. There we go. Sorry. Yeah. Because Hank is worried about Helper's laying around in pieces. Brock, of course, has got this killer instinct. He reaches out to strangle him.
This was a real weird moment in my life, because I remembered a time that I woke up my dad and he got really aggro at me because I surprised him.
Oh yeah,
like he wasn't a former Navy SEAL or anything like that. He just like he didn't hit me or choke me,
right?
But he just like got real in my face because he was, like, quite frankly, strung out on drugs.
Well,
but
yeah.
That'd
do it. Yeah,
taking a coke nap. But the of some kind. But that reminded me of this.
Yeah,
quite a bit.
Like he grabs Hank by the throat, and I love this scene transition because like, oh, you got to stop sneaking up on me. Hank's like rubbing his throat, and he says, "Brock, is it okay if I cry?"
Yeah,
he got strangled.
Incredible line read.
I've been thinking a lot about what Brock must have replied with, and I think the answer is he didn't say anything, and he just went to go start doing pull-ups.
Yeah, he's got to get his reps in.
He's modeling his behavior here. This is a really big episode for Hank and Brock, though, which is one of my favorite relationships in the show. And this episode, this like real hangouty B plot that happens with them for a while is so like sweet and good. Like, Brock just tolerates like Hank hanging out, being a Hank, and it's just really, really cute. I love it. They're putting on music here. Hank is pulling tapes out. Like, which one is this? There's music in the background, which is music that Doc and Jackson made. The name of the song that they made for this is called Hobbit Ride, parenthetical, To the Midnight Sun of Valhalla.
I love it.
Really
right.
good. And the band is called the Astro Bass Go Fife and Drum Corps featuring Billy Nine. Also very good.
Yep.
But he won't let him play in through the outdoor because that's when Zepp sold out.
Yeah, they start using synthesizers.
Well, it's the one. I think that's the album after What's His Head died.
It was
their
right
dead last
before.
album.
Yeah.
It was why? Oh yeah, no, that's Coda. That's
Oh.
the one where they made it out of clips. This is the one right before that. But he had died between its like recording and release or something.
Something.
Is that? Do you know, Gwen?
I just know it's their 8th and final recorded project. That's my extent of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that it was like it has something to do with the drummer drowning in his own vomit.
With John Bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's not just because he doesn't like that album. He has memories associated with it. It's Molotov. In production order, we have not seen her yet. Like Brisby comes later. That would be the proper introduction. We see her later on here, but that's who he's referring to. But Hank is like, all of his bad memories have to do with shit that his dad exposed him to. So it was like, oh, does it remind you of frogmen? Does it remind you of soldiers? Does it remind you of ninjas?
And then when he says it's a woman, he's like, it's the only woman I ever loved. You happy now? And I love Hank. No, because you stabbed at me. And then you're all right, Hank. Like Head Ruffle is so fucking sweet.
Yep.
Like it's so dumb that this show makes me want to have a family. It's the worst show for it. But I was just like, man, I need a big brother.
Yeah.
In
Am
a
I
way,
too old to
it's
go into that
beautiful.
program?
Wait, Gary, are you under the impression that if you went to...
He's going to the little brother. Lori's the
I
little
need a
brother
big
in
one. I
this
want a
situation.
block.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a 60-year-old man.
No, Gary, your big brother would be 22.
His name would be Ken. He'd be a graphic design major, and we'd hang out and go to arcades on weekends.
Okay.
Ken has a lot to teach you.
Yeah.
So, Hank with that tape.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hank with that tape. Your big clue that it's Molotov when you get to her in Brisby is that she says the last time she sees Brock was at the Laser Zeppelin show in Prague.
Oh yeah.
So Dark Souls
Yeah,
DNA
yeah.
there.
Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah, mutual Zepp appreciation.
But yeah, all of the Brock Hank stuff is so good in this episode, and this is where they really start to nail in the Brock as the mom dynamic that the family really functions under. And that led to, if you guys can get yourself back into 2004 brain, there used to be an old Venture Brother conspiracy theory that when they found out the cloning was the way of the land, Dean was theoretically Rusty's clone and Hank was Brock's.
I recall that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Later
Does sound
disproved.
familiar.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could believe it just based off like a few season 1 episodes, if that's all you had to judge it off of.
Yeah. I mean, and then later we would find out, it's just like Hank got a little bit more of his granddad's DNA.
Yeah.
But the the idea that like and so did Jonas Jr. As well, weirdly enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, that makes sense. I remember reading about that. When I was watching the show contemporaneously, I did go to some websites about it, but they weren't like message boards. That was before my like, I would conceive of going to a message board to look up fan theories.
Yeah.
I was just like a little too like internet noob
Yeah.
for that.
Right. I think this is just one of the few shows that I ever was doing that for, just because the waits between seasons were intolerable.
Well, that's 100% true. And every time between seasons, I would do like a series rewatch, so it became this weird shuttle run
Yes, exactly.
experience.
Yeah.
It's even to this day, like the last season, the most recent season, I've only seen once.
Yeah.
Because I was doing that shuttle run thing. I want to do like a full just like comfort rewatch of the show soon. Maybe next week during Thanksgiving break, before we cover it for the show, and then just refresh my memory.
Yeah.
But I haven't done it. So there's later episodes I just don't know that well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is also where they do the thing where Hank is doing this balancing quarters on his elbow thing, talking about scuba. And this is a really well observed, again, something that I can imagine, like a lot of Doc Hammer episodes,
Yeah.
maybe didn't read that funny on the page, but is really good in the delivery.
Yeah, it's like, oh, what's the joke about him saying scuba over and over again? You have to hear it out loud for the word to lose meaning.
Yeah, and just Brock being game, scuba, while doing pull-ups.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's so good. Scuba, them just going back and forth. It's so cozy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wonder if that is. Do we know if they recorded this dialogue together?
We don't know.
Yeah,
presumably so.
Yeah,
I actually don't think so. I don't think
no.
Because I think Chris McCulloch kind of does because he has to do the most voices. I think he's just in the studio a lot doing his own lines.
Gotcha. Yeah. It would be easy to believe that this is that like that relationship is so good because Public and what's his name, Warburton get along.
Yeah. like they were friends.
Yeah. So but we cut back over to the Orpheuses, and we meet Triana. Triana is Dr. Orpheus's daughter. Dr. Orpheus is a single dad. There's a heartbreaking line, as Dr. Orpheus is describing this, like, she thinks there's still hope that we'll get back together. No, she doesn't. It's him.
No, she doesn't. Like the fact that he thinks that is really embarrassing. Like the follow-up episode for that relationship, The Better Man, I think is a really good episode of this show as well, for Dr. O character development. And Gwen, you said that you had some Triana type five.
Yes, I do. So Augustus St. Cloud, first of all. Last episode, you guys were talking about Mia Baron, and you basically brought up the story of Lisa Hammer, who's actually the voice actress of Triana. Triana is voiced by Doc Hammer's ex-wife. That's why she eventually just fell out of use. And they were already divorced by the time Triana had her final appearance on the show. So it's like they stayed amicable enough to work on season 4 together. But that's why she was written out of the show. I'd have no idea why Molotov was eventually written out of the show. She just doesn't appear past season 5.
Right.
Well, that actually makes tons of sense, just in terms of like when they talk about Molotov, the art book, they talk about how season 1 she is and how it like is a concept that never evolved.
Yeah.
For my mistake about the wife thing, I am going to commit pod seppuku. And I am embarrassed for mixing up those actresses. And thank you, Gwen, for correcting us.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
But beyond that, Triana has a pretty short but sweet story arc. She exists more in an objective sense than from a perspective sense. Triana is there to show the contrast of what Hank and Dean are like versus a normal teenager in this universe. Triana is just a teenager-ass teenager. She likes her weird goth rock post-punk music. She's Doc Hammer as a teenage girl. I think we can all agree on that.
Doc Hammer describes her as an amalgamation of all of his girlfriends. That he's ever had. And the idea, one of the things that they bring up in the art book about Triana that I really like is that she's a subversion of the goth kid. Yeah. I've had Beetlejuice on the brain. And she's not like Lydia Dietz, who is like talking about how she's strange and unusual and basically threatening to commit suicide constantly in that movie. Yeah. Triana isn't like that. Triana is pretty well adjusted. She just likes the fashion and the music.
Yeah.
She's the normal one. Like, especially when you're like, when you got Hank and Dean as your neighbors, like,
and
how
Dermot.
are you not the normal? And Dermot.
Yeah.
And eventually Dermot.
Yeah. Like, as far as the kid crew, like, Triana is definitely the best adjusted.
Yeah. And like, it's funny because like, she grew up with a necromancer for a dad. Like, she takes a lot of that as read, but like her story arc, as it becomes clear that she has powers and, kind of the tension over what Dr. Orpheus wants for her versus what her mom and the universe want for her is very sweet as well. And like how that in a very like heartwarming but also bittersweet way takes her away from Dean, Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
We're introduced to Dr. Orpheus's cat here.
Simba.
Simba, where they talk about is like, oh, she's in heat. He's an affectionate young lass. And he's like, well, I heard if you take a Q-tip. Now, this is something they also spend some time on the commentary talking about, which I had never heard of before.
Yeah.
I had to look it up. And the commentary, which is very bro-y, but still, made me laugh, where they were talking about, like, you basically, I had no idea that this was real. The idea is that you get your cat off.
Yeah.
Like, you do have sex with your cat to relieve them of this tension.
Red
You know?
Rocket. No, thank you.
Nope.
Yeah,
Don't want
like, lady cat, like with a Q-tip, man. It's real fucked up. And she's like, oh, I tried that once. I couldn't even make eye contact with her. And then that's what happened to Doc Hammer. Doc Hammer tried that with his cat.
Yeah.
And then couldn't handle it.
You guys don't have it in the notes, but the best part about this exchange to me is like afterwards, Dr. Venture is like, "That's not your wife, is it?"
No,
That's not like her in a magical animal form. Oh gosh, no, this is just Simba.
Yeah. And later, there'll be more about his cats, him having all those cats. I love Dean and Triana having breakfast and trying to make conversation here. Where she's like, your name's, don't you have a nickname? And he says, well, I've heard my dad call me Dave or Don a few times, but I don't think it's a nickname.
I missed that line. That's really good.
It's really good.
Yeah.
My father has a policy never to negotiate with terrorists for our lives. Just Dean with the like absolutely heartbreaking lines. But he calls out her blouse, like asking if she's a pirate. And she says an Adam and the Ants kind of retro thing. I didn't know Adam and the Ants very well. I knew Adam Ant, the way that he reinvented himself to be a pop star. But I went back and watched some videos of Adam and the Ants, and I was like, oh, like, check out this video for Stand and Deliver. He's dressed as a pirate. And then YouTube was like the next video, and he's like, oh, he's also dressed like a pirate.
Yeah,
they
dress like pirates. It's so weird.
It's like the Bloodborne band. Like it's like all tricorner hat. Like, and then later, the main thing I knew Adam Ant from was the 1992 single Wonderful, which is like a pretty catchy like radio middle of the road pop song. But it's so funny that in the 80s he was this like post-punk pirate guy who wrote songs about being like a raider essentially, and then was like, no, I'm not Adam and the Ants anymore, I'm just Adam Ant, it's my normal last name, and I write the songs that sound like Martin Page. Just incredible stuff.
A more generous read on their aesthetic would be that they look like a gang from the Warriors.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. I mean, low key, a very good episode that I don't hear talked about. When you see the gang of Morlocks who live under the compounds, worshiping the missile and stuff like that, or filling the missile with shit. The fact that all that they get is VH1 classics, like the
fire starter.
Yeah, a good third of them are dressed like Adam and the Ants characters. It's really good. Characters, band members, just because that's the whole
characters, aka
there.
bassists.
Yes, the bassist is always the character.
You could say in the story, the bassist is the character.
Jesus Christ. You guys ever watch Tom Hanks's That Thing You Do?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sure, yeah.
The one band member he doesn't name is the bass player, and if you look at the credits, his name is TB Player.
That's great.
God.
Rest in peace, Fountains of Wayne guy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Rest in peace.
So this is very sweet as they're kind of making small talk, and I love that they're both just trying their best.
Yeah.
Again, this episode just having this immense amount of sweetness. Where Trina is just like, you called it a blouse? Who's that guy who's always washing his car in your yard? Oh, that's Brock, just kind of excitement.
Well, and then just like he tells this story like it's not a horrifying thing. One time I saw Brock kill a guy with a sock full of party snaps, which sounds like something from the Anarchist Cookbook.
Yeah.
Did the guy's head get blown off? Yes, it did.
Is that like a party cracker? Is that what a party snap is?
Those like
a party snap is one of those little paper things full of like pebbles and gunpowder.
Yeah, you just like throw it at the ground.
Yeah.
That like just as a kid you just throw them at adults' feet. To menace them.
Dance.
To let them know who's boss.
Yeah. The childocracy of the Ross home. Those things like it's so funny, like they're called party snaps because like you can tell it's time to party.
We have to go outside and use this or it'll stay in the carpet.
Woo! It's like I love the underperforming fireworks like that, and then those little worms.
Oh, the snakes.
Oh God,
like a little snake. If you just want to see like a turd slowly grow, and then just have like a gross mess. So a picture of a badass like cobra on it.
But you have to buy them because you'll have like $1 or $2 left over when you go buy fireworks. So what are you going to spend that $1 or $2 on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is where we get the line about the box my pop made. We learn about the learning beds, like, oh, it plays us like film strips and stuff like that.
Which she challenges him. He's like, it gets very hot in the box my pop made. When she questions him about this, he says penguins have a gland above their eyes that convert seawater into freshwater, which is true. It's called the optical gland. Ocular gland. Yeah, so that's a real thing.
And apparently,
like,
if you look on the wiki, they've got like all of the pop culture references and stuff like that. Some of them are reaches, but this one apparently that's like a Snapple cap fact. Like just straight up, read verbatim. So one of them was drinking a Snapple, and like, oh, let's throw this fact in, just as a thing that he recites reflexively.
No, super good. So we cut back to Brock fixing Helper and Hank trying to help him. And there's a little miscommunication here where he's trying to get a wrench and stuff. This goes on for, it feels like a beat too long to me.
Yeah.
Until Hank eventually goes into the Joy Can. And this thing makes you see your dreams. And how much, when watching this, were you like, I want to be in the Joy Can?
Yeah. I mean, with a couple of, let's say catches associated with the Joy Can sounds like a miraculous thing.
It was making me think about how susceptible I'd be to BTL chips if I was in Shadowrun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, I'd be one of those guys rotting in a computer cafe.
Wait, yeah, well, Gary, let me pose you this scenario. A man comes up to you and says that I have a Joy Can, no further questions. Do you want in?
Not with no further questions, because I would have to make a lot of assumptions about them knowing, like, they have a common understanding as to what the Joy Can was, like consensus reality.
Right.
And I have a Joy Can, do you want in? Sounds like a come on to me.
Like he's got a fleshlight in his pocket.
Yeah, in his pocket if I'm lucky. Like it just. Like,
oh, for fuck's sake! Yeah. But it's heartbreaking what the Joy Can decides to show you, or at least Hank, because like Hank's vision, what his pineal gland tells him he wants is his dad asking to play catch, and we hear the voice of what he assumes is his mom, or what he imagines his mom sounds like, saying, "Oh, lunch is ready. It's grilled cheese sandwiches, and I cut the crusts off." Like, oh god, he just wants like a normal childhood. How does he know what a normal childhood is?
This is extremely nitpicky. Like, I understand why, the boys have their separate plots in this.
Yeah.
I don't feel like Hank does want a normal childhood.
No.
I think this is like a Dean storyline.
Yeah.
This is a season 1 Hank decision, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, if this was a season 2 Hank, they would have given him something way different in there.
He'd be Batman.
He would have been the Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, he would have been, like, he takes after Brock. He likes the adventure. Like, he's that part of Rusty. It felt very weird for him to come in and just be like, oh, it's like home bliss. I think he would be bored by that.
Yeah.
He wants to go see a dead body with Dermot. So it is very season 1.
Yeah, they try to establish earlier in the episode that Hank wants some kind of normal family by saying, like, the Doc's always too busy to help them with anything.
Yeah.
But it's not, it doesn't pay off.
No.
When Brock goes in, Brock tries to get him out and gets tempted by the Joy Machine. And we get the flashback to his actual origin, where he's killed the football player, who they decided to make a deaf guy. They were doing this in the studio booth and just did it as a funny voice. They are very defensive, like, we're not making fun of deaf people. Like, we had somebody come in and do the subtitles, who was like a sport, and we paid him and everything. We just wanted to make this extra tragic.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of notes of this that I think are very funny. One is in Brock's fantasy, the football player says, "Don't worry, Brock, it was my fault. I shouldn't have tried to run. I should have just given you the ball." Which is really fucked up and weird for football.
Yeah.
Like, it's my fault. That's incredible to me.
But another thing that's hilarious, like, they're on the same team.
Yeah, it's real weird. And then in the commentary, they tell a story about the guy that came in to do the little picture-in-picture sign language thing. the way that he interpreted reading lips is no matter what question Jackson Public asked, he interpreted it as, so where do you live?
Right.
So no matter what he would ask, he would answer his
with
address.
an address, yeah.
Yeah, which I think is funny. Like, I'm not trying to make fun of deaf people at all. I just think that's pretty funny if, like, you're just talking to somebody and no matter what.
If you're just in that situation, it'd be very bizarre.
Yeah, like I had a lot of, again, like mirror neurons firing for Jackson Public, just being stuck in that situation and thinking it was hilarious.
How do I navigate this?
Yeah, it's not, it's also a weird thing where the guy kept listing to the side, so they actually had to turn the camera.
Yeah, which is why it looks like he's off balance, because he is. Yeah,
really strange. But yeah,
Yeah,
just
he looks
weird.
super manic in there too.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. I don't know. I don't know if he was just like super hyped up to be on camera or what. It's just a little weird looking.
Yeah. Oh, so like any kind of ASL interpreter is always going to be very animated like that.
Really?
I only know that because I was like, when I see my governor talking about coronavirus and they have the sign language interpreter on there, why are they so animated? And I looked at that just like, oh, it needs to be as broad as possible so people can interpret it. Also, this guy, he was not somebody who grew up learning ASL. He I feel kind of giving this bio for a guy whose name I don't know. No, he recently became deaf because of a medical condition, and he was learning ASL as an adult. So like he's not doing good ASL when he does this.
Yeah, it's sloppy. I saw that note too. Like he fumbles one sign specifically and makes the verbiage weird.
He basically just says football death.
Yeah.
Is what they say, which is, basically gets it across.
Yeah.
But this is, Brock's fantasy. And then like after he's forgiven for killing, he goes right back to it.
Yeah. Okay.
As soon as he's absolved from his original sin, it's just time to kill ninjas. Brock is born to do what he does.
Is everything that Hank listed earlier in this fight?
No, there are no frogmen.
No, the frogmen are in the sidecar that the polar bears are on. Yeah,
with the polar bear. Okay, yeah. Well, they're. I guess I got confused because there are things that Hank doesn't list.
Right,
for sure.
Here.
He doesn't list the cowboy with the flamethrower.
Like definitely influencing his subconscious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the ninjas. It's the guy it's the polar bears on motorcycles. The ninjas are the frogmen, the scuba guys are in the sidecar with the machine gun kind of stuff coming at him. Like they're just literally, the scene was what's the dumbest thing we could think of to have him fight, to just gleefully slaughter in his own personal Valhalla in the Joy Can.
Yeah, the Joy Can. Orpheus is going to go check out the lab and try to solve this problem. I love this little skull answering machine thing he has, leaving messages. Like, I want one of these.
You could probably rig
cool.
one up with like a Raspberry Pi or an Arduino or something.
Totally.
Yeah.
I want to have my skull made into one.
Oh, Gary, we have plans for your skull. It's been several years since we talked about it, but I think it goes to Brian Wade.
Well, yeah, but I'm just trying to tell Brian what I want him to do.
Oh, right.
I want it to be a prop replica from a show that got canceled.
Maybe.
This is where the pudding line comes from.
Yes.
You
may enjoy the contents of one of them. Yeah. So good. But like it's Orpheus and Venture go to leave, and again, one of these cozy moments that would not work well on the page but works good here. They close the door, it waits a beat, and then Orpheus comes back and checks it. He opens the door, he says, "No, I told you the door was unlocked." It's like, oh yeah. Again, relatable.
That is very relatable.
Yeah,
and that's the first time they really play with his music for straight comedy. Like, as they are playing that trumpet line as they exit the door, and then it cuts out and it's silent for just a moment before he opens it back up.
Excellent timing. Yeah,
really, really good at it. Dean is in the bedroom wearing a Burger King crown, looking like Jughead, pretending to kiss his hand. Which again is also a teen thing.
Is it, Gary?
Sure.
Okay.
When you're young, you learn about kissing before you do it.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
Listeners, rise up. Gwen, you ever do that? Is this just me?
I think I can't go with you there, Gary. I'm sorry. I always wondered about that. I saw it on TV a lot, so it's like clearly there's some truth to it to
so at least
someone.
me and some actors did it.
Maybe it was an 80s thing.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. Could be because I'm old.
Yeah, it could be because you're old as shit. You used to kiss your hand.
It's before we had some Scott Adams teledildonics e-mouths.
By the
We
time
had the Cinco e-mouth back then.
Yeah, by the time I hit puberty, we had the internet. So
Yeah. You could just load up Virtual Vicky or whatever. Like that's the only. Do you remember that? Like, that's like a weird.
Yeah, I remember Virtual Vicky. What was that? That was like Clippy or like Bonzi Buddy, but it was a lady.
It was like a sexy Bonzi buddy.
Yeah. Okay.
oh my
You
god.
know? Something an erotic Bonzi buddy. Can you computer? Can you show me sexy Baldy?
Yeah. Can I get something in a cover letter that will make me horny? Jesus. But yeah, so Orpheus goes in, he's trying to fix things. Rusty's explaining the pod and he's really proud of this, right? He's saying like, and oh, it creates an electrochemical link to the user's pineal gland. Well, I love that as a From Beyond kind of thing. And it gives them whatever they want the most. It's the Joy Can, literally like a Lotus Eater machine kind of thing.
Well, it's also this is a great invention. Like there's a twist as to what is powering it.
Yep.
But like I love Doc can do science.
Yes.
Like this is absolutely incredible as an invention. And it has the worst possible name in the Joy Can. When he's showing it off, like it's got these neon bits that Dr. Orpheus mentions. Like inventions have to have a certain venture panache, which I love.
Got to add some zazz. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Orpheus is still unsettled by this. There is something that reeks of the beyond. Yea, though I have smelt it, that hath dealt it, he says.
Oh,
Jesus.
very good. He trips over Hank. It's weird that they don't see Hank until he trips over him. Trips over Hank, and Hank is trying to explain like that Brock's in the machine, but they won't listen.
No, he's not supposed to be in the lab.
Yeah, don't sass for guest. Gotta be firm. Give them an inch. They think they're a ruler.
In fact, he screams at his son and says, "Hank, march!" Like, get the fuck out of here. He
says it in a Brock voice.
He does.
Like, Hank, march. Like, Homer.
Yeah, that is maybe a tone I don't think he ever uses in the series again.
No. Well, he eventually stops caring about them. He stops even talking to them. We cut inside the Joy Pod. Brock has had enough of violence. So what flies in but a bed with Molotov on it? She's not given a name here, but this comes after Brisby, so we know who this is. She jumps on him weakly to hit him, but then she's in bed.
Well, it's not. There's more. Let's not undersell this. Like she does the Bond villain, putting her crotch in his face to twist his neck or whatever.
Yeah.
So she's sitting kind of crisscross applesauce, crotch to face, hitting his head, and he just walks stoically to the bed. And she's so tiny, it's like she's a mask. It's such a weird animation. It's like a cunnilingus like Cinco mask.
Oh, there are some really weird frames in this episode. I caught Orpheus's face looking real odd at a few times.
The straight on shot is incredibly weird. Orpheus straight to the camera looks really weird.
But
so, and this is the fantasy about her losing her chastity belt so they can go all the way.
Yes, she says, "Promise me something. Promise you won't be gentle." So we don't see this in his fantasy. We see what's happening in real life, which is him just vigorously fucking the air with his clothes on.
While slamming it around and stuff and making Brock sex noises, making this now we're 6 episodes into this and the 4th appearance of Brock sex noises.
It's
an
important part of his character.
Yeah,
it's got 2 speeds.
So the reason why they can't get anybody out of this is because the lock is on the inside. of this thing, which is, extremely dangerous for something that sends you into a fantasy land. But Rusty says it's for masturbating.
Yes, it is. It's for like, hanky panky, a lonely kind of hanky panky. Which, that's not the part that Dr. Orpheus is like against. Like he says, like, oh, this is a miraculous invention. He doesn't care about that. It's a design flaw for sure. Don't take me out of this. I will lock you out. I'll die in here.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, again, sounds pretty good.
Oh yeah.
So Hank goes to go tell Dean, this is my favorite delivery in the episode, is him being like, Dad's made the joy cam, but now it's evil. And Dean just saying, I dare you to make less sense. Like the confidence of that line read is so good.
Yeah.
And isn't this the same scene where like Dean gets right up and just falls over?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. He just gets a head rush and falls over. Yeah.
Yeah. In the commentary, Doc Hammer talks about how proud he was of that joke.
Yeah.
It's like people would be calling it out for years,
But it really just reads as a pratfall. It just reads as him being a gawky teen.
Yeah.
So.
So they're going to wear tinfoil hats is their idea. They also talk a lot about how hard it is to animate tinfoil because it's a reflective surface. So it just looks like gray paper.
Yeah. I don't understand like there's certain like animator or visual design, just kind of like fixations that happen where they end up like, I fucking hate that. I never want to see that again. It's awful. I don't think this looks terrible. It reads as tinfoil because it's on their heads and they're going into a magical machine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think public is just being a little bit fussy.
They had another character in like season 6. I actually linked that in the Slack earlier for unrelated reasons. And he's wearing tinfoil. It looks okay. Mm-hmm. So it's not like they were so against tinfoil to never touch it again.
Yeah.
Well, they talk about that they're like advancements. They talk about doing it later and it being
the
like
field
looking
of tinfoil
better.
Animation.
Yeah, like looking better, but looking almost too real. And I had a moment like where it's like the commentary, and I'm like, you are the only people who care about this. The idea of tinfoil looking too real is it's not even a first world problem. It's like a 0th world problem.
Fucking
negative first.
Gary, work with animators, man.
I prefer not. I think I'm all right.
I've seen that Ren and Stimpy documentary. I know where this is going.
I don't want to get invited into somebody's joy can just because they're John Kay.
there are a lot of things that pop up specifically from public in the book and in the commentaries where I was like, for fuck's sake, you're the reason projects were delivered late, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, almost 100%. Like these guys definitely, as great as the show is, like it's clear that sometimes they were just focused on the absolute wrong thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. The dumbest shit. Yeah. And it's interesting, like there's a little bit of insight that you get from that, like reading the book where they talk about, or it's in the book or the commentary, but they talk about how the broad strokes they agreed about, but then all of like the editing and really minor like timing things they disagreed about. Mm-hmm. And then it ends up making sense in terms of like fussy perfectionism. Yeah. Because that's the kind of stuff that like ultimately takes, the most time. Like it's kind of a cliche that ideas are cheap. Mm-hmm. And it's really just the doubling or having kind of like a time multiplier on the time it takes just for them to do the fine details. Mm-hmm. It made sense to me as a creative relationship.
Yeah.
When the boys go in, they're shielded from the full effects of the Joy Can. They see Scamp, second appearance of Scamp. But Scamp is clearly like a holodeck illusion.
Yeah, he like jumps through Hank. Scamp has all of his skin here, so
yeah.
So that's
they
good.
They can't get out, but they're not, in a fantasy like Brock is.
Yes. The door just disappears so they can't find it, but they're here, and this is where they see, Brock vigorously fucking the air. Orpheus is on the outside. He tries to cast a spell of opening, which is very effective for everything on the compound except for the Joy Can.
Yeah. This is a great little one-off joke here. So the boy is to rescue Brock. They're going to pee on a shirt to kind of make it like tinfoil. Or, yeah,
that works. That adds up.
They could have just brought the roll of foil with them.
Yep.
Which this leads into Brock's line in just a moment. So
they didn't really think anything through. So
he admires their spirit.
He does. God, I love this story beat because again, it shows exactly, it's more evidence for how monstrous Rusty is, but the delivery on this is very good. Orpheus is inspecting the Joy Can and says, "Hey, there's some strange, there's something strange in the material about this." And Rusty talks around like, "Oh, I've used some non-conventional materials," and it eventually gets down to this just very good sheepish delivery where he's like, "It's a little orphan. It's just a little orphan boy." He says it really so quietly.
It's it's articulated really well. I like that how Dr. Orpheus has to tease it out.
Yeah.
Because there's a part where he's like, "I may have used some unorthodox materials," and Dr. Orpheus says, "Tell me one of them." Which is a way to,
just tell me one.
It's a way to avoid a dodge. Like somebody's trying to answer, with something non-specific, and you're like, no, we need to be specific.
Yes.
Here. And it's this, it gets darker where he's like, "Oh, you mean this is powered by a Forsaken child?" He's like, "Well, yeah, and kind of. I didn't use the whole thing though," which is darker.
So, is this the most evil Rusty ever gets? I feel like it might be.
I mean, the Venturestein gets pretty rough.
Venturestein's rough, but those people died. They were already dead.
Yeah, they were already dead. I think whenever I think about Evil Doc, I think a lot about him hiring the itinerant workers.
Yeah.
And that's kind of racist Doc.
Right.
That's racist
Evil
Doc.
Yeah, which is also evil, like a kind of evil. But this is, the orphan is real up there.
But also it raises a lot of questions. When did you decide that you needed an orphan? If you disdain magic, why did you decide to start using this? There's nothing, it's literally just the most heinous thing they could think of.
Yeah.
I think back to the season 1 or the episode 1 line about the chupacabra where he scientifically disproves it, right? Mm-hmm. So there's clearly magic in this world, and he just has some kind of magic blindness and refuses to accept it in any capacity.
Yeah.
Well, it's pride.
Mm-hmm.
It's his pride. Like he was born into science. Science is his inheritance. Mm-hmm. And if something else has that power and is more efficacious, it takes away from him.
Yeah.
It's zero sum nonsense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If this can be achieved by magic, then I am irrelevant.
Yeah. Earlier in this, before, the Orpheus has a vision of the boy and is doing Marco Polo
because the boy's name was Marco.
Yeah,
he's screaming he's trying to draw him out. It's like a seance. Like, "Marco, please respond to me."
I love the when Dr. Venture's response to this, this is the point in which Dr. Venture gets over Dr. Orpheus, where he's like, "I knew they were in there." This doesn't actually accomplish anything. They can't get out; they're trapped. Right. In the commentary, they talk. Doc Hammer admits he's like, "I just wanted the episode to end."
Right. So everything
the story was told, and now it's time to go.
Yep. So everything after this is drawing it to a close. Just get about St. Quentin Venture. We've said what we need to say.
Yeah, I really like that. There's a really obscure little reference where Orpheus is telling Rusty to get the kids out and telling him to be cross with them. That is a reference to the movie Poltergeist. Mm-hmm. We're talking to a ghost, but it doesn't work because it's not true love.
So you can't draw them out. It's not true love, but gosh, Rusty's response to that is, "Well, it's not my fault."
Yeah,
it's not my fault. My kids don't love me.
Extremely horrible.
Yeah.
But Triana shows up. It says Dean's name, and Dean hears it. And true love is what opens the door.
Yeah. The last thing the Joy Can shows is a realistic heart above Dean's head that is pierced by an arrow, gushing out blood. They get out and they do a Go Team Venture. Mm-hmm. And then Orpheus banishes it.
Yeah, the episode ends Orpheus banishes it. Rusty gets upset. He's gonna have to raise his rent here. And Dean, beautiful Dean delivery where he's like, "Well, I'll see you around the compound." And she's like, "Around the compound? What are you, David Crush?" She goes, "No,
I'm Dean Venture."
I'm Dean Venture, you know? And then I love this like ending where Hank is like real smooth. Like, really? No credits. Like that's really good.
Yeah. God, just that Hank has a better understanding of this dynamic than he does. I don't know how I feel about this post credits because I mean, so it's a masturbation joke. Rusty wants into into the bathroom. That they only have one bathroom in this compound is really funny. And he asks, like, Dean, what are you doing in the shower for so long? He says, I'm practicing being a boyfriend, Pop. Like, oh, never mind. The idea is that he's doing the makeouts on his hand, right?
Who knows? Probably.
Okay, probably.
But he could
I
be
think
yanking hog.
it's too ambiguous, but like I think you're probably right, Cole, that he's probably doing that innocent act. Rusty probably thinks he's masturbating.
Right.
That's probably the intended joke, but it's a little too ambiguous for that read.
It's the common Dean gag where he unintentionally says something horrible in his innocence.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it's a callback to Rusty explaining masturbation to Dr. O, where he's like, "Oh, no more of this. Hey, Rusty, I just need to get my hairbrush," which is a specific enough thing where like,
okay, yeah,
you know, I think that's the idea here. But it is a like kind of a cheap joke.
Yeah.
You know, it's there's not a whole lot to it. But again, like it's like Doc Hammer admits to, like the episode's over, let's go. You know, like we did our jokes, let's continue, let's move on. Which I have no problem with.
And that's the up.
Yeah. Any wrap up thoughts?
Good episode, good show, good podcast.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm so happy the Dr. O's in the mix. You know, I love where his story goes. I love his crew. The Order of the Triad is one of my favorite things in the show, alongside Conjectural Technologies.
Any of the side groups are really special.
Yeah, 100%. I keep wanting to pinpoint an episode where the doors blow wide open on the universe. I don't think there is one where they blow wide open, but this is one of the most important layers I feel like they add in the early episodes.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. O and that whole crew is incredibly important. Like their whole episodes, you know, it's a secondary character. You know, it's not like a tertiary character or a side character. Like Dr. O gets more developed, even if Dr. O is less tied in the lore than like Billy Quizboy and Pete White. He gets more development.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like Pete White gets tons of character development.
Right.
You know, Billy Quizboy gets a little bit of an arc, but like Dr. O actually is a much richer character, I think.
Yeah.
And it's besides Billy, it's like one of the only earned friendships on Dr. Venture's end.
Yeah.
Like you actually get to see him earn somebody's trust and respect. And it's slow because Dr. Venture's a right cock, but
yeah. And it also, again, it leads to those great moments with Dean, right? Like introducing Triana, the end of the Better Man episode, like the fuck you, like as the ending before the credits is one of my favorite, like most relatable things in this show. You know, I love everything with the Outrider.
Yeah.
You know, so it's very good. This is a signal of good times are coming. The Alchemist with that cotton ball story, like just richness of a specific detail. You know, just incredibly good.
Oh God, I forgot about the cotton balls.
It's like, oh, this happened to one of the writers. I can tell because it's so specific.
Yeah, it's way too one incident per sure.
Yeah. This is specific.
Oh, geez.
Gwen, where can people find you online if they would like to check out your stuff or hire you to do music?
Probably the best thing, if anyone's in the Slack, is message me on there. But I wanted really bad to get a website together, but I'm failing badly at that. So probably, if you want to hear my music, go to my SoundCloud, which is soundcloud.com/deepwhale. Whale as in the animal, not Wide Whale, the villain in Venture Brothers.
Or like a deep whale like Major Tom does.
Oh.
The third whale. Yeah, I recommend it. Like you've heard the theme song. The theme song to the show is very good.
Yeah.
Gwen, you've also done some like remixes for some other versions of our shows and stuff, and they're all awesome.
Yeah.
So
I thank you.
Heartily recommend.
Yeah. And thank you very much for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
I appreciate you. If you're listening and you like the show, you'd like to get it early or support us or get other shows, you can go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. That is how you get access to the Slack we keep referencing.
Yep.
You can hang out with us and Gwen. You know, we got, you know, we got a whole host of folk. We got Jake Prime.
We've got a whole channel called the Venture Compound to talk about this show and the Venture Brothers. It's a good time.
Gwen has been running a character bracket, a minor villain character bracket.
I love it.
In that channel. That has been very fun.
Oh, yeah. If you're hearing this, I'm going to guess you'll be just in time to start voting on round 2. So the round 1 eliminations are already taken care of. We had some interesting matchups, but can't see those anymore.
Well.
Yeah.
So get on it, folks.
But the second best time to, the best time to plant a tree is 10 years ago. Second best time is today. So,
you can also leave a rating a review on Apple Podcasts.
Shit.
People have been coming out in force on that. We are really appreciative. Okay, we can do the Go Team Venture thing now.
Yeah, and also in addition to that, also Go Team Venture.
Go Team Venture.